go again. Back. Thanks for joining in, everybody. Appreciate it. Back again with Albert Castro, our very special guest this week. Again, so this is number 3 of the Bars Open with Beth and Greg. Last call. So this is number 3. Thanks for joining me again. I appreciate it. It's always great to have you here, obviously.
Right.
We always have you here, which is a good thing. So, this is, I'll kind of recap again. This is meant to be, the last call is meant to be a place where we can interview people, folks, starting with my father-in-law, who's graciously kind of come on and allowed me to chat with him for a couple hours over the past couple weeks. And again, it's going to be a place that we can just come in, tell stories, tell cool stories about your history, about your life, about all of the fascinating things you did over your pretty crazy career.
I don't know if they were fascinating, but
they're fascinating to people like me. Absolutely. So just to recap, kind of go back to like we talked about before. So you transitioned from being a police officer, which we talked about last time in pretty good detail, over to being an air marshal
right,
and customs agent.
And
then transition. That's when they split off to become the DEA. You were a special agent with the DEA.
Yeah.
Right. So that was that transition time where the DEA was actually created.
On July 1, 1973.
1973. So then you had a 24-year career as a DEA agent.
That's right.
Which is pretty incredible. We were just talking about it before the show, and some of the things you've seen and got to do, and places you've been, and people you've met, some good, some not good. It's pretty incredible, and we're going to start getting into that today. So, cheers, everybody! Thank you so much for joining in, and I really hope you guys enjoy these episodes because I know I do absolutely. So, let's just get kicked off. So again, you spent 24 years as a special agent.
Right.
Some undercover, or a lot of it undercover.
Yeah, about 17, 18 years of undercover work.
Undercover work.
That was once or twice a month I was working undercover on one case or another.
Okay. And, I mean, so most people, they like we were talking before, you're like, you kind of had 2 lives.
Yes.
Right? Where you're an agent, you're a bad guy, so to speak, right? Out there playing the role,
usually played the role of a drug dealer with money,
right?
And you had to be hard. You had to intimidate the guy you were buying from, make sure that he knew where I was coming from,
right?
And I always told him, I said, you mess with me, you'll end up dead.
Which is kind of crazy to be able to say that, right? Yeah. So most folks on my side, right? The good side of the law, I guess is the way to say it. The living a good, normal life, I guess, is kind of, you don't think about that underbelly kind of side.
The thing about it, Greg, is that when the time came to go home, say there was nothing going on.
Right.
And it was 5 o'clock and you went home, you left work behind.
Okay.
And you became a father, a husband. We went out and did normal things, eat out, go to the mall, that type of thing.
Just live life like a normal, like it was in 9 to 5 or on those types.
But when I came back the next morning, I would go into my mode of what am I going to do today?
Right.
Who am I going to bust today?
Right.
And look at the different cases. I always had a lot of irons in the fire. I had
just all the time.
A lot of targets that I wanted to work on. Some very good targets, some were not that great, but nevertheless needed to go.
Right.
That type of thing. So I would always put those aside and work on the major ones.
All right.
Yeah.
So when you started in the DEA, so like what got you? How long had you been in before you started going undercover? Or did you kind of just do that at the same time? Did it all kind of just roll together?
See, before we became DEA, I was a customs agent.
Right.
All right. Mm-hmm. And prior to that, I had been a customs patrol officer, and the job of the customs patrol officer was to check stuff that came in from out of the country.
All right.
And
so cargo coming in from trucks,
cargo and things of that
ships
sort,
and stuff like that, and everything.
Yeah. And then I made agent. I took the test. My rabbi at this time was Fred Turner. He says, take the test for an agent.
Okay.
A good friend of mine who passed away already, Jack, was a former state trooper, Texas state trooper, took the test.
Yeah.
of course, we passed. It was a piece of cake.
Right. For you guys, because you've done basically that job for so long.
Exactly. And it was a hour and a half long test, and we did it in almost an hour or less. And we just sat there, and Jack was stationed in Austin, and I was stationed in San Antonio.
Okay.
And making fun of me because I was the rookie at this office, and everybody had nice cars except me. I had a Volkswagen, and the top speed on that Volkswagen was maybe 60 miles an hour.
I remember you telling us a story about driving into the field, and because you couldn't see anything, you were the last one in line in the chase.
Yeah, so and then I got lost. I wasn't familiar with San Antonio that much already. So, but and then it all after that case when I got lost, if there wasn't anything going, I would get in that car and drive throughout the city, learn the streets, the neighborhoods, the bars that the people hung out, that kind of thing.
Right.
And I would write a intelligence report as to what I found out when
you're out.
I was always
patrolling,
running,
so to speak, just driving around.
Yeah, trying to learn the city, and it paid off because I would take down license plates and run them and find out who all was meeting at that place.
Okay.
You'd go to a bar, there'd be 5-6 cars. I would take the license.
So that's just where you start. That's how you started just building a case.
Right.
And start kind of getting into it and starting seeing who's coming, going, those types of things.
Yeah. Okay. And I start looking for informants.
Yeah.
And there was a trick to that, but I'm not going to divulge.
No, that's fair. Yeah, that's fair. Some of the stuff, we're not going to name names and do those things.
No, I got some good informants.
Yeah.
Made a lot of cases with them.
Right.
So that's how I started working undercover. They would introduce me to the target that I would find out if this informant knew this person, and if he did, or knew somebody who knew somebody, to get into that guy and get introduced to him. And
okay.
I had false identification, of course, a regular Texas driver's license with the false name and address and all that.
Right. But it was legit license.
Yeah, legit.
Whatever, right?
Yeah. If they ran it, they would come back.
Right.
So
come back.
So
yeah, because you don't. Yeah, you can't have like a fake ID doing that. And when some of the people you're going after, some of the
so
higher profile targets.
See, and so I always took care of my informants, though.
Yeah.
They were my bread and butter.
Right.
And so you had to take care of them. I paid them well. If the case went down successfully, I would fight to get as much money I could to pay him.
Right. They're putting a lot at risk,
him or
right?
her. I had a couple of females, too. They're funny. The hardest part was having the female informants. Oh, they were a headache. But they were good.
Calling you all the time.
Oh,
needing favors, helping out. Yeah. Need money for this and money for that, or whatever.
Exactly.
Get me out of trouble here.
Yes, exactly.
That was probably,
I'm in jail. What'd you do? Well, blah, 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 I didn't do anything, really. They just picked me up because they know who I am. I said, no.
You did something.
You did something.
So when did you, like I said, you started doing undercover work kind of just as it was going, right?
Yes, yeah.
Where did the cases take you? And what I mean by that is like internationally.
Oh, yeah. I did cases in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico, where I got the hell beat out of me by the Mex Feds thinking I was a bad guy.
Oh.
It took about 3 minutes for the regular American agents to jump in and say, wait, he's one of us. But by then I had been hit 5 or 6 times in the head and the stomach and when we made the bust.
Yeah, because they thought you were literally one of the bad guys.
And so then they're all apologizing. Oh, so sorry, I'll buy you supper. That kind of,
like, okay, is your eyes swollen up or whatever?
And that happened here too in San Antonio.
Yeah.
When I work an undercover case close to the produce market on, I think it's Laredo Street, and or Zamora, one of those streets in the west side. Mm-hmm. And I was negotiating for a quantity of heroin.
Okay.
And the bad guy said for me to get in the car with them, go get it. They wouldn't let me sit there by myself. As we started to leave, we got pulled over by 2 narcotic guys.
They didn't, and they had no idea.
And they yanked everybody out of the car, including myself. They bumped me up and pressed my face into the hood of the car and then pushed me around. And then they took us to jail because one of them had about 1 gram or 2 of heroin.
Okay.
So we're all in that car. So they the guys went in there. One guy as an attorney, went in there, bailed me out. The bad guys were going, "Hey, help us out too. Tell them to get us out." I said, "Yeah." And as we're working out, the two cops that got me beat up and all that, were saying this. They couldn't believe I was walking out. So you didn't stay in there very long. I said, my partner at that time was, who was that? Jim Henderson or Jerry Courtney? One of them says, "No, he's a federal agent," and both of them, their jaws just dropped.
Yep, you kicked the shit out of a federal agent, by the way.
Sorry, we didn't really mean it. They were
bullshit.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's a dangerous. I mean, it was a dangerous life on both sides.
But it was part of the deal working.
But you had to
undercover.
play it no matter what because you were still undercover.
Yeah, you can't say I'm a cop.
Right. Exactly. So where else did you go? I mean, it was just.
I went to.
I
did a case in Nuevo Laredo, Mexico. I did a big case in Miami, Florida.
Okay.
I went to Los Angeles. Where else did I go to? Los Angeles, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, El Paso.
You're just all of it. It's mostly south. Did you have to go up north at all for some of the cases?
I only went twice. Once to Detroit, and another time to Chicago.
Okay.
And they were, unfortunately, both by the time I got there, the target of the investigation had already been popped for one thing or another, so it didn't.
Just turn around.
Yeah, turn around. Go
home. That's cool. Yeah, so you got to do a lot of cool things. Yeah. So one of the questions that I was thinking about is how hard, when you say like you had to switch back and forth, right?
Yeah.
Like was that a difficult thing to do to like shut it off?
Yes.
Or turn it on in some cases?
Yes, because I would be with my family and I would see something suspicious and my wife would have to remind me, "You're not working."
Yeah.
But it was hard. I would see something and I said, "Wait a minute. That guy I think I know that guy."
Yeah.
And you start concentrating on that person to see what he's doing, who he's meeting. And my wife would, at the restaurant
focus
or
on
at
us.
the mall.
Yeah.
And my wife would say, "You're not working. You're not working." Oh, so okay, sorry.
Sorry. It's just,
But you had to always be careful because I know in one case.
You just had to be.
Yeah. In one case.
Kind of thing, right?
The one had to do with the Miami case, which is a very good. The person that I ended up arresting along with all the other dopers was a guy that was 6'6". And one Christmas, we were window shopping at the mall, and I get tapped on the shoulder, and this voice says, "Hey, Al." And I turn around and I look up. It's, "Oh, my Lord." I says, "What?" I didn't panic. I just looked up and said, "What are you doing out?" He says, "Well, I got paroled. I was good conduct, and I was one of the people at the library and all that other good stuff."
Did stuff in the prison or whatever.
Because he wasn't, actually, I mean, in real life, he was a nice guy. He just got mixed up with the wrong crowd.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's one of those things that I was always looking around.
Right. So I know you've told us you've told a story, and I mentioned it on the podcast last night, just real quickly, because I try and allude to some of these as we're talking to the other one. But there was, and I don't know how far this was into your career, but when you had a hit put out on you,
yes,
and you got to catch the guy,
yes,
at the grocery store.
What happened was I made a case on a guy and four of his partners, a good case, ended up with 1/2 pound of heroin.
Okay.
Well, the older brother of that guy found out who made the bus, which was me.
Okay.
Working undercover. So he put out and he was cheap. He wanted to pay $10,000 for someone to knock me off. So they found.
I don't know why I'm laughing because that's incredible. Like,
yeah.
It's only in the movies you see about shit like this.
So the informant says a guy took a contract out on you. I said, "Really? Who's going to do it?" He says, he tells me the guy's name. The boss says, "You out of here. You and your family go," because the contract was on me or any member of my family.
Oh.
So we had to, of all places to go. I could go anywhere I want with my family, but I asked my wife, "Where do you want to go?" Brownsville. That's where her parents live there.
So she's familiar with it. Yeah.
South Padre Island. We rented a condo up there while I was.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
So you left them there.
Yeah.
Right.
So we were about 7 or 8 days after that, we found out who took the contract. They found out that he was also a drug dealer.
Okay.
but he was a mean guy. He served 10 years for assault with a deadly weapon. The guy didn't die, but he shot the guy twice. So he went to jail for 10 years, yeah. And so he had a little history of violence. And they said, you want to come back and do the honors? I said, I would love to. So I left the family. I told them I'd be back. My wife says, don't go. No, I says, I got to go.
Yeah.
You all have fun here at South Padre Island.
I'll be back in a couple days.
Yeah. Bring your mother or have her stay with you while I'm gone. So I got back and got set up. And we found out that he was going to deliver 12 ounces of heroin at a parking lot on a grocery store on the southeast side of town. And so I won't mention the grocery store.
Yeah, that's fair.
It was not HEB, let me put it that way. But anyway, we found out what was going to what time he was going to be there to take the delivery. And so we figured we'd kill two birds with one stone. Get the guy that was buying the dope and get him that took the contract on me.
Okay.
So we got to the parking lot. We had it covered with like a blanket. We had agents at every exit and walking around. And I went into the store, identified myself to the manager, and asked if I could borrow one of their aprons. It's a red apron.
Okay.
And I said, I want to be collecting baskets out there because he was already there. The guy pointed out, there's the guy. The informant says, he's in there, and he's armed. I says, okay. So I started picking up baskets, working my way towards his car. He looked and saw. He just thought I was a basket guy, you know, or working.
You're just doing like a normal, everyday kind of thing.
And I got all the way up there, and I pulled out my gun and tapped him on the window, and his eyes got as big as a headlight. I said, lower the window. So he lowers his, you're under arrest. And he says, is that your gun? What gun? There was a 45 lying. Pick that gun. No, I'm not going to touch that gun. I says, pick the gun up. No, I don't want to touch that gun. I says, okay, I'm going to give you a deal. I'm going to open the door, you get out, and you run and see how fast you can go. And I'll count to 3, see how far you are. No, you're going to kill me because you're going to say I was trying to escape. No, I'm not going to run. So he gets out and lies on the floor, on the ground, and puts his hands behind. And I said, what's going on? The guy just...
I thought you were a tough guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. So needless to say, we got him for possession of heroin, got the guy that was supposed to buy the heroin, and conspiracy. 2 or more is conspiracy. So yeah, he got, I think he got 30 years.
Okay.
But because of the charge of trying to kill an agent, he had to serve at least 20 before he was eligible for parole. So...
Okay, that's an interesting one. So that's tells you kind of how serious it is. Like,
that was the second. That was the first time. There was a second time.
I didn't know that. I thought it was just the one.
No. There was another time when the same thing happened. I made a bust, got the people, and got this old man who was 65 or so, but he'd been around a long time. Had a long history of narcotics. He had served time twice for narcotics. Yeah. But he now was sort of like a godfather to this group of about 8 or 10 guys. Okay. And I was introduced to him, and like any other case, when you go, you always have to make 2 or 3 meetings before you decide yes or no or
to kind of
how much.
If you trust him.
Yeah, well, not only that, but you
you
negotiate on the price. He wants X number of dollars. And I say, I'll pay you this much. Mm-hmm. Well, but I want this much. I said, no, look, I'm taking so much, so you got to give me
a break or something
on the price. And, finally we reached to a, and that's when we started doing the deal.
Okay.
So after I busted him, he was in jail. And as I understand it, I never got to interview that guy. One guy that knew him well was getting out and told him to get a hold of one of his men and see if they would do the favor of knocking me off. They didn't say how much. Okay. He just says, knock him off. He needs to pay for me being in jail.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So the guy that decided to do it, I ran in. He was in a restaurant with his girlfriend. I walked up and I sat down next to his girlfriend because she was sitting facing him.
And she has no idea who you are.
No, she didn't. But he did. The moment I sat down, he just turned about as white as a ghost. Yeah. He says, so you're going to do a hit on me? I just said I would. I wasn't going to do it anyway. I says, yeah, are you sure? Yeah. I said, because if you are, then now's your chance. I'm sitting right here in front of you. He says, no, I'm sure somebody's got their bullseye on me. Somebody's going to shoot me if I even try to pull for a gun. And he'd be a sniper.
Yeah.
So I said, well, you want to go peacefully and tell her you'll see her later or what? Yes. So we got him out. We couldn't charge him because he hadn't actually accepted the contract. He was going to do it.
Okay.
But since there was no money involved or anything like that, the guy said, I told him, I said, you're going to walk, but you better look over your shoulder because I'm going to be right there. He said, oh, no. He says, I'm leaving town. As a matter of fact, me and my girl are fixing to go to Los Angeles. I said, well, you better leave.
And stay there.
Because otherwise, look over your shoulder. I'll be right there. And he was calling me, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah. Ultimately, Albert's an adrenaline junkie is really, I think, a lot of it. Oh, you have to have something like that to have a career that was as long and spanned as long as yours did.
Yeah,
in undercover and doing. We'll get into a couple of the cases that are pretty, like you said, that are pretty memorable for you, your bigger ones. But to be able to do that for so long, to be able to turn it on and off and on and off and on and off, but also live that life, where you put people in jail, they do get out of jail eventually.
Yes, that had to be careful. To be honest with you, I never took a straight drive home. I always
mixed it up
so they wouldn't have a pattern.
Yeah.
Right. And I was always looking at the rear mirror.
Yeah.
If a car stayed too long behind me, I would either pull over and see if he passed me, or I would make a turn and see if he turned.
Right.
So I was always looking. It was challenging. I was never afraid, and that was the problem.
What? You weren't afraid?
No, I was.
If a bad outcome happened or something?
Yeah, no. My wife says that's going to get you killed.
Yeah.
You need to be afraid. And one of my old bosses, when I was a police officer, said, the day you stop being afraid is the day you're going to get killed.
Yeah.
He says, always be afraid. Always be like walking on hot coals. He says, you have to. And so
mindset,
I kind of went back to that. I said, I better start, and so I was always looking over my shoulder or looking in the mirror.
Because that's, like you said, that's going to be the minute somebody's going to walk up, somebody's going to recognize you.
Because that happened once. This bad guy was killing his competition.
Okay.
And he just walked up to a guy in a bar.
Just popped him.
And the guy's in the bar drinking beer. I'm in there negotiating with a low life. And the guy walked in from here and put the gun to the guy's head and boom. And they turned around very coolly, started walking out. Luckily, there was a cop that heard the shot. He was on patrol.
Yeah.
And was able to get the guy. And I was a witness to it. So.
Okay. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's that life. That's that insane life that's, still going. This shit's still happening.
Yeah. This guy's have no qualms in killing somebody.
Which is, it's just your sociopath where you just, it doesn't.
Yeah. I became callous about working undercover.
Yeah.
And I remember one case in particular. There was a very famous kingpin drug lord, and he's dead now. He was shot and killed in the pen. When he got arrested, now the guy was really bad. I mean, this guy.
Bad
guy.
Yeah.
This guy was bad. He'd killed 2 or 3 guys for either stealing dope from him or whatever. But anyway, he was bad. He got popped. So his niece took over.
Okay.
And she was dealing left and right, and I got introduced by an informant as usual. And we negotiated almost a week, 3 or 4 meetings. We met. We would meet in San Antonio. I was supposed to be from Dallas, and then we would meet in Austin with her.
Somewhere in the, okay.
Yeah, and, finally decided the last time would be in San Antonio for the delivery. And the funny part of that was that she was going to do it, but she needed to see the money. So I said, okay, when do we do it and where? She says, we're going to do it at the parking lot of the hospital downtown.
Okay.
I said, okay. Of course, by this time now, I knew where it's going to be, so we had the areas covered with agents.
Right. So she's like a kingpin now.
Yeah.
Because she took over. Okay.
And her boyfriend was a very popular semi-pro football player. and were the San Antonio Toros.
Okay. Is that team even around anymore?
No,
Okay.
they folded after about 2 years.
All right.
Money-wise, yeah. But anyway, he was a bull, and that was her boyfriend. So she says, show the money to my boyfriend, and then I'll be waiting for you with the merchandise.
Right.
Remember, we never call it heroin. You never call it. It's always merchandise or the thing.
Okay.
Or the stuff. You never say heroin or cocaine or whatever. So he says, I'll be in there with the merchandise.
Is that in case like somebody's undercover?
Yeah.
And they're wired or something, so they don't technically have recorded.
So I show the money to her boyfriend. He gets on the phone and calls her. I've seen the money. So she says, well, tell him to come on in. I says, where am I going? Inside the hospital. Inside the hospital? Yes, going in there. Where? In the ladies' room.
It's not going to look at all weird with a dude walking in the ladies' room.
Yeah. I says, in the ladies' room? Are you sure? That's what she said. So I go down there, and sure enough, she was in there, and she had that little plastic, expensive, one of those expensive purses from...
Like a Louis Vuitton or something.
Yeah, one of those.
Yeah.
And it was in there, right? So I looked at it, and there was one of the guys who was dressed as an orderly with a wagon.
Okay, one of your guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And when I saw it, I banged on the door 3 times. I mean, it's bust. So he goes in there, 2 other agents go in there, and we arrested, and me included.
Yeah. So did you nearly always get arrested?
Almost always to protect the informant.
Okay.
Yeah. I shouldn't have said that, but anyway.
That's just the way it goes. I think, I mean, you see that in movies and
anyway,
shit too. So
to make a long story short, Tank, the guy, her boyfriend, they used to call him Tank. He was a bull in football.
Yeah.
He gets 15 years. And
so he's dealing too, though.
No, he's just a protection.
Oh, okay.
Her boyfriend. Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, and we go to court, and she pleads guilty on a 1 count of 15-year count. And on the way out, I was standing by the door. She had just pled guilty. She was in handcuffs, walking out. She stopped in front of me, looked at me smiled a little bit. She says, "Damn, you're good," and walked away. And I'm going, wow. She gave me a compliment.
A compliment. I busted her.
And my wife was right there. She had gone. She had never been. She wanted to see
a case.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Damn, you're good, she says.
You got, I mean, but that's the thing. It's like you have to be able to play.
Yeah.
You have to know the game from both sides. So you have to be an expert at dealing drugs, honestly, right?
Yes. I had to do a lot of reading, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, because, see, when I was in Mexico, in 1974, I was sent to Mexico to work in Mexico, which was the first. Mexico had never allowed American agents to work in
Inside
Mexico.
their borders. Okay.
And I went. And
what changed? Like what? Because it was just the drugs were so bad then.
Really, really bad. Right. And
so is this like during the time of like Escobar and stuff? I don't remember when he was around.
Yeah.
Or was that
before
that?
It was after that.
It was that, okay.
Yeah. Anyway, this is 1974.
All right.
And I was sent to Mexico to work with the Mex Feds.
All right.
And I linked up with, I had to pick 6 Mex Feds. So I wasn't going to take any of the ones that were already out. I said, can I go to the academy?
And get some fresh
and
people.
They said, well, is that what you want? They don't have any experience. They'll get their experience with me.
Right.
So I went to the academy, picked out 6 guys except one. One was a bodyguard for one of the comandantes, a very big comandante in Mexico.
All right.
I wanted him. He was a young guy, 26 years old, and he was originally from Laredo, Mexico.
Okay.
And we became really, really good friends. And I baptized his son, so I was a godfather to his son. That's cool. I was in Mexico. And we went to Culiacan, Sinaloa. The state is Sinaloa. Culiacan is the city. Was a hotbed for heroin. And what was the way it happened, or the way it's done, the plantation for the poppies, which is where the opium comes from,
all right,
is up in the mountains. And these drug dealers would pay the Indians that lived in the mountains. They never come down from the mountains. They live up there and
just work the crop.
They don't even know what a TV is. They don't even know. They just work the crop, and they got paid. And most of them got paid with food, like those 20-pound bags of rice, 20-pound bags of beans, and things like that.
Yeah.
And a little cash. They had no place to spend it.
Right. They just needed the food. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, that was more important to them.
So what they do is they would water it using PVC buckets from a waterfall, and you would have 500, 600, 700 yards of nothing but PVC to the plantation where the poppies were. And what they do is they milk the poppy. They cut little cuts on the side of the bulb, and a white liquid, very smelly white liquid comes out.
And that's the drugs.
That turns. They go to a lab. They collect as much of it as you can in cups, and they go to a lab. Now the lab is not like what people think a lab should be.
It's not like a medical lab.
Yeah. This is pots and pans and a burner and things of that sort, and they process that liquid and it comes out to be opium.
Okay.
Out of the opium comes the heroin, the morphine that's used medically. The only thing medical about that is the morphine.
Otherwise, it's just a
drug. And so we were there. We busted about 5 or 6 different labs. And you had to act fast because this lab was contracted to do this job today.
And then it would just be gone.
And they hold it up and go to the next doper wants it. So
interesting.
We had to act fast. Once we got it, and we got involved in 2 or 3 shootouts.
Oh, really? At the labs?
At the labs, because the guys had guards. Because
that's all their money or whatever. That's their drugs.
Right yeah. So it was kind of scary and fun. And one of the things was a funny one is I'm talking 1974.
Okay.
Excuse me. An informant for one of the Mex feds says there's some Chinese from San Francisco buying some opium. As you well know, Chinese have been famous for smoking opium, and they have opium galleries.
Dens
Everybody knows that.
Yeah, it's going back years, 100 years.
In San Francisco.
Right.
Okay. So there's 2 or 3 Chinese buying some opium, 10 kilos of opium. That's a lot.
That's a shit ton.
And
so how much is a kilo? I don't even know.
Well, back then, in 74, a kilo of heroin was going for anywhere from $65,000 to $75,000.
Oh, gee. Oh, okay.
An ounce was going for $2,000 to $3,000 an ounce.
That's crazy.
Max pure, $4,000 an ounce. You got to remember that if pure, you can make 3, 4, 5 ounces out of one.
Okay.
Because it's so strong. Yeah, you cut it.
All right.
So that's where the money came in. But anyway, there was only 2 roads coming out from the mountains. And so we decided to put a roadblock. And they were supposed to be in a yellow Volkswagen. The Chinese were there. And they were going to go to some city, Culiacan, the next city over, I forgot the name of it, and catch the train to go back
home. Back to the States or whatever.
So we set up the roadblock. We're sitting there. This is funny, okay? And it's like 2 a.m, and everybody's hungry. And there's a little stand that serves food for the bus. When the bus gets there, people get off.
Food or get back on the bus or whatever.
Being feds, they went and knocked on the door. He says, "Get up, fix us some food," just like that. And I'm going, "Oh my gosh, the poor people," So, yes, sir. Yeah. So they made some eggs and other stuff, and we're eating. And we had soldiers, by the way, guarding the highways.
All right. So does the roadblock, is it just like a check? They make it look like a checkpoint or something
and
like
so,
that? Okay.
Anyway, here comes a car, 2 o'clock in the morning. There had been no traffic up until then. And it's really running fast.
Okay.
And he almost runs over the soldiers. They jumped and they fired several shots at it. So we all run and get in our cars, and we're driving. And I'm looking at the driver, and he's got a sandwich in his hand. He's driving, doing 60, 70 miles an hour on a road that goes up and down. And one minute you're looking at the bad guys up there. The next minute you're looking at the guys back down there.
It's just an old mountain road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's eating a sandwich driving. We're going to get, I figure, we're
going to roll off this mountain.
We're going to get killed. We're going to get killed. And then finally we got into a straight line, and they opened fire. They started firing. And the guy says, "Come on, fire with your Magnum that you got there." So I fired twice. Boom, boom. And anyway, to make a long story short, they could make a curve, and it flipped over twice. Right?
Yeah.
So we get there. not a scratch on the guys. The car, I counted the holes of bullets in the car, 47, and not one of them hit.
Like, how does that?
And it was not the Chinese. These two guys had stolen the car of the mayor of Mazatlan. Mazatlan is
wrong guys. You caught some bad guys, but the wrong bad guys.
Yeah. And I said, well, you call the mayor, tell him we got a scar.
And it's rolled, it's trash, and it's got 47 bullet holes in it.
So, and I'm sitting there. So what if we didn't get killed away this year?
Yeah.
And one of the guys said, can we go back and finish our breakfast? Get out of here. Well, we didn't get the Chinese. They didn't.
Did they get out?
No. What happened was the next day, the informant says they're coming. They're dropping off the car. It was a rental in Culiacan. They're going to board the train. So I wasn't involved on that. What happened was they went to the thing, and I told them, listen, guys, you go in there. Remember, it's a train station. There's people out there, passengers and shit. Mm-hmm. Be sure and do not fire. Try and get them without firing a shot. I says, where are you going to be? So I'll be there, but I'm not going to be involved in that.
Right.
This is strictly a Mexican thing. So, poor agent Ballesteros screwed up. He, when the Chinese got there and they were getting ready to board, he hollers, "Policía!" And the guys, the two Mexicans where the Chinese opened fire on the agents.
Yeah.
And the agents returned fire, but Ballesteros, who the one that said "Policía," got hit right in the forehead, dropped dead. And I'm on the parking lot, and I run quickly over there, and I saw Ballesteros on the ground. He said, "What happened?" And they shot one of the bad guys, arrested the Chinese, and confiscated the dope.
Yeah.
But Ballesteros lost his life.
Yeah.
And DEA came through because Mexico, like, they didn't care about their people.
Yeah.
The guy he wasn't from Culiacan. He was from somewhere in Nuevo Leon, which is a state bordering Brownsville.
Okay. So
Victoria. I think it was from Victoria, Nuevo Leon.
Northeast.
And somehow his family was going to have to make way to bring his body back home. That government was not going to help at all. They just said condolences, and it's part of the job.
Right. But they just didn't. Yeah, it's a different.
Yeah.
It's a different.
So,
way.
but the DEA stepped up and says, "We'll pay for the casket, and we'll pay with transportation."
That's cool. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had to write a report, of course,
right?
Because an agent was killed, and it was good. And then finally, we had to leave. I had to leave Mexico. Well, it's a long story, and I'm not going to get into it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I said, okay, Bert Moreno was my boss from the embassy.
All right.
Yes, and he's the one that called me. He said, "You got to go." I said, "Okay, yeah, I'm ready to go. Believe me, it's been great, Bert. Thank you so much." He said, "No, you got to go." I said, "Okay, I'll pack right in. I'll leave in the morning." No, he says, "You got to go now." I said,
"Leave your shit behind."
Oh. I
out.
grabbed the clothes that I had, and I got the suitcase, threw everything in there, got in there.
Would you go straight to the embassy or something? And
no. I'm far. Embassy's in Mexico City. I'm on the west coast of Mexico, Mazatlan. I was at Mazatlan when that happened.
Okay.
And he says, "You got to go." So I drove like a bat out of hell, and crossed over in San Luis, Mexico, into San Luis, Arizona.
Okay.
And then I was told to report to Nogales.
It's closest station there. Yeah.
So I took off. And
interesting. It's crazy.
Hey.
It's crazy.
Now I never knew why I had to go. I had an idea.
There was somebody that was. Somebody said something.
Yeah, I had an idea what it was all about, but I can't go into that because there were some politicians involved in that.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
how one of the things I think is kind of funny is when
that was 1974, by the way.
Right, when you're undercover is when you have to. You've mentioned this a few times to me when you wanted to call home. Like, how often did you get to call home and talk? Like, you're undercover, you're working out in wherever you are.
Yes, and I had to let my wife know I was all right.
Right.
And I'd always say, "Listen, I came here with my girlfriend. She's at the hotel. let me call her because it's taking longer than I had expected. Let me call her and tell her everything's cool.
Yeah.
So they never minded. They said, yeah, there's a phone on the wall there. So I'd go over there and I go, hello, babe. Hey, I'm doing great. Not to worry. Everything's going good. Okay, I'll be there in a little while. Bye-bye.
It's just a quick check-in.
And she knew that I was okay.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I was thinking, I mean, that's one of the things that comes up. It's like you're gone for a long time. And this is before there ain't cell phones and shit around.
No.
You know what I mean? So it's a completely different, you can't send an email. You can't send
there were a few cell phones, but nobody, there was
the big ass ones.
Not everybody carried one. So
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So when you first, so the first, say 10 years of that, of your career, what was like one of the hardest cases? If you can talk about some of those, like in hard, I guess could mean a couple of different things, right? Because you could have like one that's just a really long, drawn out case, or it's just difficult to get in. You know,
yeah. Most people don't realize this, but undercover work means that it doesn't happen in one day like on TV or on the next. It's drawn out. I worked undercover on one case for 18 months, meetings. In San Antonio, meetings in McAllen, meetings in Laredo, meetings in El Paso, 18 months. And everybody kept, Al, that's too long. Drop it. It's dead. I said, no.
It's there. There's some meat on this.
And sure enough, I ended up getting one of the largest seizures in San Antonio in 1985.
Right.
Got 110 pounds of cocaine.
That's a ton. I mean, that's not a ton, but it's a lot. That's a lot of cocaine.
Yeah. 110 pounds of cocaine, and ended up arresting a Guatemalan captain, a Guatemalan lieutenant, a Mexican federal agent, and the dealer I was dealing with is a Nicaraguan, and 3 or 4 other people.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, to think about, like, you know, but it took you that long, and you knew the case was there, and you just stuck to it.
Yeah,
and got it done. So that's pretty incredible. So there was one of them. One of the cases you mentioned was a sheriff.
Oh yeah,
which is this is kind of the irony of this.
This particular case. It's one of the feathers in my cap. Okay, the one I just mentioned about that 110 was good.
That's a big bust.
Big bust. And
sometimes it's about the person.
And we broke up a ring that was headed by a guy up in Miami. This is how I ended up in Miami, one of the cases. But anyway, so that was a good case. Now, the one with the sheriff, I was supposed to be a Colombian drug lord.
Okay.
And I traveled to the U.S. to purchase stuff because I had the money and all that. But I also looked for a place to drop my cocaine. And I had an informant who had been a pilot. And he got busted in one of his trips, and he flipped. And he said, if I tell you who is behind this, can I get a break? And they said, yes.
Right.
So he says, you're not going to believe this. It's the sheriff of Gulfport, Mississippi. So the guy in charge of DEA in New Orleans was a guy that had been stationed in San Antonio for several years and knew the kind of work I did. And he called me up.
All right.
And he goes, Al, I have a small problem that I think you can work it out for me. Can you come up here and help me out? I said, yeah. What is? He says, well, get over here and we'll discuss it and see if you want to take it. If you don't, I can understand. So I show up. His name is Bobby Bryden, was the guy in charge of New Orleans. And he explains the situation. It's an FBI, DEA joint investigation.
Okay.
The informant will introduce you to the sheriff. And I go, whoa, the sheriff? Yeah. And the sheriff will come up to meet with you whenever you're ready to meet. I said, well, how about tonight? I'm ready. Jump at the gun of getting a crooked sheriff.
Right.
So they rented for me a room up on the 17th floor of the Holiday Inn by the river in New Orleans.
Okay. So
actually, no, it was the 16th floor. The 17th floor was the bar.
Okay. So you're as high up as you can go.
Yeah. And that bar was cool because it had like umbrellas, and you would see lightning, and it would rain.
Inside the bar?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And it stopped, right? And it stopped, and And after about every 15 minutes, you see lightning and thunder, and then it would rain. So it's cool sitting there.
Yeah.
So I invited the sheriff. My informant says he's ready to meet you. I told him all about you, that you're a big shot in Colombia dealing with it, and he's anxious to meet you. So he says, well, bring him to the bar and we'll negotiate. Now, the problem I saw there, and that was the hardest part for me, was I could not speak English. It had to be.
You were Colombian.
I'm a Colombian. I had to do everything in Spanish, and the informant was going to be the interpreter.
Okay.
And it was hard because sometimes the sheriff would tell him to ask me a question. I wanted to answer before they even asked me the question, right? And so I had to really watch it. So we sat at the bar, and he liked it, had a few drinks. And now, when you work undercover, you can have as many as 3. That's the limit, because it'll come out in court.
Right.
So you don't want to.
You can't be inebriated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
you're still working.
Normally, I would only use 2 drinks,
Right.
because I really need to be in my sharp.
You have to remember everything, because you got to go back and
write a lengthy report.
Right.
So then the sheriff says, I don't want to discuss it here. Can we go to your room? You have a room? I said, yes. I had ordered a rolling bar. It had all kinds of liquor and highballs and wines and stuff.
Yeah.
And so we come in there and says, fix yourself a drink. I told him, I wasn't going to drink. I already had 1 drink. I could drink 1 more if I wanted to, but I. Yeah. So we sat there and discussed it, and he wanted $10,000 up front. Excuse me. And 5, because he says, how much are you going to bring in? So, and I told him, I said, I think I'm bringing in. I would tell him that I'd like to bring in about 150 pounds of cocaine, pure.
Yeah.
And so he tells the sheriff tells him it's going to cost him $10,000 up front for protection and 5 kilos for me. Now, this sucker was running for re-election under the just say no to drugs.
That's the kicker to this guy. So when you think about, this is when it was the just say no to drugs and alcohol was big back then too. I mean, really.
Yeah. So we negotiated. I said, no, that's too much money. And up front, are you kidding me? I tell him, I don't even know if this will work.
Right.
And he asked.
I'm just going to give him,
So the sheriff asked him to tell me, how am I thinking of bringing it in, because he's got a big pasture that I can make a drop if I have an airplane. Okay. I told him to tell the sheriff that's exactly what I want to do. It'll be in 50-pound bags, military canvas bags, or sea bags. Sea bags, yeah. So, but I'm not willing to pay $10,000. I never have paid up front for anything. And so he tells the sheriff that. He says, yeah, but this is the United States. We do things my way. I am the sheriff in this county. And so he told me that. He's a sheriff in this county. So I told him, well, tell him I'm the guy that has the product. So there.
Right.
So
you've got bargaining, technically.
So we did. Right. So we decided to cut it off that evening. And he says, think about it. When are you going back? Ask him when is he going back. He says, well, he's going from here to New York to do some shopping and then back home. Ask him when he's coming back. He says, well, he asked me, and I told him, well, I don't know. It depends on him. I'll give him a call from Colombia and see where we're at, and then decide if I want to come back or not. Now, he's looking at dollars, right?
That's all he cares about.
Yeah.
Just greedy.
So the meeting was over the first time. Mm-hmm. Second meeting, 2 weeks later, I'm back. We meet again, and he says, tell him that the reason I want $10 up front, because I have costs that I have to take care of. I have to pay my deputies to block off roads, and they'll be off duty, but they're going to be doing like a moonlighting type of thing. And I have to pay them. They're not involved, by the way.
Oh, okay.
No, they're not. They're involved. Just on. Yeah, that sheriff wants us to block off, we do it. So
right.
So the second time I went, 2 weeks later, I went back. I got on the phone and called him, but I was already in New Orleans, and I told him I'm here, so I'll be right there. So about 2 hours later, he shows up. He's happy. He's whistling. And
he's seeing dollar signs.
Oh, yeah, he's doing it. So we sit down, and we had a couple of drinks. And then he says, I've come to a point where I'll give you a break. He says, I'll take $5,000 up front, but still want 5 kilos. So I said, well, tell the guy that I'm going to kick that over, and I will be in touch with him.
Yeah.
And so we shook hands, and I told him, tell him that it sounds like a good deal, but I'll have to make sure that my pilot's ready to do it. So he tells them that to the sheriff, and we reported. He left. And all of this is being recorded and videotaped on the. I shouldn't say how. I'm not.
That's fine. Yeah, that's cool. But there's ways to do it. Yeah.
We videotaped the whole conversation, the meetings, and all of that, all of them. So.
So up until this point, you've got him basically on like conspiracy.
Yeah, right? So far.
Okay.
Exactly. So anyway, 2 more weeks pass. Now we're looking at 6 weeks from when I started.
Right.
And I called him. I was already in New Orleans. I'm ready to do it. He says, the plane will be here tomorrow between 3 and 5 in the morning. And he says, oh, no. I'm sorry. Let me back up.
All right.
He takes me to the ranch to show me.
Okay.
It's a nice ranch, a nice house. It's not a 2-story, but
a ranch-style house. Yeah,
but it was spread out.
Yeah.
And there was 3 or 4 guys there, and he says, these guys are from up east. I said, oh, really? What are they doing down here? Cooling off. I said, oh.
In other words, they're bad guys, too.
Yeah.
Right.
So he shows me the ranch. His son is 23,
This dude is in, like...
In Gulfport, Mississippi.
Well, no, this sheriff is just a bad dude. He's just a bad dude. Because he's got criminals. I mean, he's just a bad dude overall.
Yeah. And he was proud of the fact that he says, I run the county. He says, you want to have a female working in your bar, you got to pay me to have her working in the car. You want to have a jukebox, you pay me for having a jukebox. You want games, or you pay me to have that.
Dude had his thumb on everybody.
The way he was, you either do that or close you down.
Right.
He had the power to do it, too.
That's incredible.
So anyway, at the ranch, his son says, he tells his son, show him our little product. I says, really? What product are you talking about? He says, come on.
Yeah.
So we got into a 4-wheeler.
Project.
And went across the road from the ranch. Was owned by a paper mill or a paper company.
Okay.
And nothing but huge streets everywhere. But right there, it's like I think it was about 3,000 or 4,000 acres of trees, beautiful trees.
Oh, okay.
But right in there was an open space, and it's like about 70 foot deep by about 60 feet wide, and nothing but 6 foot tall marijuana plants. And they watered them and took care of them and all that. Right. And they were in the back of the property, so
nobody goes back there anyway because it's a tree farm.
There's no roads out to the back,
so you have to have it's a trail or whatever. Yeah.
So I said, well, that's neat. You're making a good business here. He said, oh, yeah. Right? Through the informant, of course. Yeah. And, of course, it was so hard for me not to.
Just accidentally slip or what.
Yeah, exactly. So we go back, and I said, all right, it's a deal. Have your men ready to pick up the product when it's dropped. Mm-hmm. He says, yeah, everything's ready. We've done this before. He says, this is recorded. Right. We've done this before. He says, it'll be ready. The man will, just as soon as they hit the ground, they'll pick it up. And it's okay. So we waited, and FBI and DEA converged in the ranch, and they were everywhere.
It's a big bust. This is a big deal.
Yeah. They were everywhere. It was to avoid escapes and stuff of that sort. Because remember, so he had the 3 guys that were from up east, or 4, and 2 other ranch hands ready to pick up the product, and they had a pickup truck
just ready to go.
Just throw them in the back and take off. And this is in his ranch, though. So we waited, and everybody drinking coffee. We hadn't slept because we got there about, if I recall correctly, around 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, and got in there quietly and got set up. And sure enough, we already had the time. It was 4 o'clock in the morning. We heard the plane coming, and he was coming right over the treetops.
Okay.
And one of the agents in there throws the bags out, and they were hit and bounced 5-6 feet up in the air.
Yeah.
The guys ran out to grab the bags, and that's when we ran in there. The sheriff, in the meantime, was at the ranch house. He was fixing breakfast for me and the other guys.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
it's gonna be it was gonna be a good day for him.
Yeah. So we all jump in the car.
Little did he know.
We go up there. We drive up to and he's in the kitchen with an apron, and he's got a utensil in his hand and something else in the other, and he's shocked. His mouth was wide open, and we walk in there. You're under arrest, and this ranch now belongs to the government.
Sorry, because anything that's used, right, becomes federal.
Yeah. So we seized him, his car. The only thing we couldn't seize was his service car because it belonged to the county.
Yeah.
But we arrested him, his son. His son was one of the ones that was out there directing.
Picking up the dope.
Yeah, directing. So, and we, of course, we got him with production of narcotics, which was a marijuana.
Right.
And that was one of my better cases that
That's a big one. So, I mean, that's, like I said, you can have just some bad guys.
Yeah.
Then you have bad guys that pretend to be good guys.
Yeah.
And they're just assholes. And those are the ones that, like, you really get some satisfaction out of because he's living one life.
Yeah. The next time I'll bring you my newspaper clippings with the sheriff's picture.
Yeah, because, I mean, again, the sheriff of an entire county in Louisiana or Mississippi.
And running for re-election.
Right. Under the Just Say No to Drugs and Alcohol or whatever, drugs, kids. Yeah. So thank you for sharing time and spending some more time with me. We're going to wrap this one up today, but we'll be back again next week for another episode. We'll get in a little bit your later part of your DEA career as well.
Looking forward to that.
It'll be fun. So I always like to wrap it up, say thanks to first responders, frontline folks, everybody, military, with all of you guys. We can't do this stuff without folks like Albert here, making everybody safe and trying to really be a positive change. It's just really incredible. So thank you all. You guys have a great week. We'll talk soon. Bye.